Blau und weiß ein Leben lang. Hallo meine Leute, wie geht's? Willkommen zum das einzige Schalke Podcast auf Englisch. That's right, folks. Officially the world's only English Schalke podcast worldwide. This is episode 94 of SchalkeMerica, and I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Schalke fans are some of the greatest fans in the world, many of whom speak English. This pod aims to bring you the latest from the Royal Blues, talk to the English speaking fans at the club and get their point of view across and bring you game highlights. As always, joining me on the show is co host Jack Mangan. How are we doing, Jack, tonight?
Coming in hot with the borderline jazz hands there, man. What was that about?
I'm excited, man. We got to see some youngsters for once, huh?
We did.
I'm
David Wagner, clearly a dedicated listener of our podcast, and finally taking our advice after a long time. Somebody must have just sent him the link to us last week. But yeah, I think, and we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, I think you and I were probably both very pleased with the team selection for this one.
We were, but before we get into that, this podcast, we're going to talk about Union and Leverkusen. So we'll start off with the Union Berlin match from 2 weeks ago. And so we're going to share the lineup here. It was a pretty standard lineup up until this weekend. And back, obviously, in goal, you had Alexander Nubel, back four of John-Joe Kenny, Kabak, Ochipka, Juan Miranda making an appearance. In the midfield, well, actually, it was Salif Sane. According to this is incorrect from Bundesliga.com. Salif Sane was in the back four. In the midfield was Juan Miranda with Alessandro Schoff, Robbie Matando, and Caligiuri. And up top, you had Rahman and Gregorich. It's a pretty standard lineup. It wasn't, the only wrench that they had in there was Miranda playing, getting some pitch time. What were your thoughts about that lineup initially going into there?
Yeah, if you want to consider Sane to be in the defensive midfield position in that role, that would probably be the only noticeable thing outside of the Ochipka center back. Because obviously we know that Salif Sane played that position previous to joining Schalke, that he was there semi-consistently. So we haven't really seen that for whatever reason since he's come here. It seems like both all the managers that have had him have kind of viewed him in the same way, as almost purely a center back. So that'd be the main thing. But you Matando, Rahman, and Gregorich all at the same time is interesting. That's a I don't know if we've seen that kind of front three before. So those would kind of be my main two takeaways, I think.
Yeah, and I was curious to see how the lineup would do. I think we saw a lot of the same old in that with that lineup. The one noticeable thing before the game, not only both these two teams, but all the teams in the Bundesliga took a knee before the game. Obviously, with the whole Black Lives Matter movement going across the U.S. and in the world, really. So that was very noticeable there for all the leagues. But the game started out very, very cagey, as you would imagine, between two teams who are around the same place in the standings. No one really wants to cause a first turnover. However, our young Spaniard, Juan Miranda, did have a giveaway in the 11th. That led to a quick counter between Anthony Uja and Andrich. Both of them taking advantage of Ochipka and Rahman. They ended up linking up for the goal in the 24th there. So it was a quick goal there, in the 11th minute. A terrible play by Miranda. I don't know. He is to blame because he let the ball bounce, and then it was a poor attempt at him. At that point, if you're going to be in a situation like he was, he should have fouled Uja, in my opinion. He did not. It led to the quick counter. So they went up 1-0 there. And then in the 24th minute, they nearly had a double there. A cross in by Trimmel, their captain. Salif Sane gets just enough on it to throw off Anthony Uja and it forced Alexander Nubel to make a really strong save to deny him. And as we know in football and in soccer, big saves usually lead to an opportunity the other way. It did just moments later. In the 28th minute, Alessandro Schoff slid it off to Caligiuri, and he fed John-Joe Kenny, who blasted home a missile. Jack, all he does is score bangers. That was a brilliant goal. We've seen this before early in the season. Almost identical goal. John-Joe Kenny just releasing Howitzer from distance.
Yeah, John-Joe Kenny, noted member of Bangers Only FC. Not a great goal scorer, but a scorer of great goals for sure, if there ever was one. But it was a uncannily similar goal to very similar position on the field, the type of strike and everything. So maybe we just need to start feeding him there. That's his spot. Some people in the NBA, they shoot that corner jumper. John-Joe Kenny likes that, right outside of the box laser. So, thank God for that, because we were not particularly good in this game, especially early in the first half. I feel like, they had a number of chances that they might have put away more than we did. And it's honestly not too surprising because we've been in brutal form, and even if we had been in better form than we had been, this Union Berlin team is a team that has taken points, as we said on a previous episode, off of a number of big teams this season. Obviously, their home field advantage is going to be significantly mitigated because of the lack of fans in the stands post restart. But even so, this is a competent club this season, and they know how they want to play, and they're very committed to it, and they do it effectively, and they utilize the things that they're good at more than they don't have the players to have the sort of the technical prowess that a lot of other clubs do. So they don't even really mess around with that. They're very dedicated to their style of play, and it's effective. And I think ultimately you could say that we may have been lucky to get out of there with a draw.
Yeah, and I think lucky is the right term because they really gave it to us, especially as the game went on. You could see that they're certainly the stronger team. Union did have a late push at the end. It wasn't enough. Nubel had another big save at the end on Schlotterbeck. For me, John Joe Kenny was man of the match, not only for the goal, but he had some nice play overall. But yeah, Nubel had a couple big saves in that game, and overall, we were lucky to come away with a draw and a tough place to play with fans or not, as you said. So. We always knew that was going to be a difficult game, and getting away with a point, I guess I was somewhat satisfied considering the recent results prior to that, where we were just getting slaughtered by everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a vacuum, I probably wouldn't be happy with that. But given that we went into this one knowing that it could be a difficult fixture, I'm not disappointed with the 1 point. But if we wanted to maintain any illusions of still climbing and trying to reach European spots. At some point we were going to have to pick up 3 points, and we didn't see that from this one, and we didn't see it against Leverkusen either, unfortunately.
No, we didn't. And I'm going the game against Leverkusen, we were curious of what the lineups would be. I mean, people were screaming for a change in the lineups and everything. And so let me see if I can pull up the lineups here. That is not the lineup I wanted. Give me 1 second. Got a live streaming here. But the lineup that's showbiz. It is showbiz, isn't it? The lineup that we went with, a very young lineup. Alexander Nubel, a back four of John Joe Kenny, Kabak, Ochipka, Juan Miranda, a midfield of Kalajiri, McKinney, Schoff, Bozduan, and then a top two of Bujaleb and Katuchu. The young kids were out to play, Jack. What were your initial thoughts? I mean, I was going nuts when I saw that lineup.
I mean, first and foremost, and most importantly, Katuchu was freed, and that's really what we're all here for. That's what we all want to see.
Yes.
And a number of people on Twitter noting that when the lineups came out, Ronan Murphy, a number of people. Wow, Phil Bonney, I forgot his name for a split second. Friend of the podcast tweeted that out. So a lot of people excited to see that, as we all would be and should be. It just inexplicable how long it took for that to be a thing, how many chances Bergstaller has gotten recently, and Gregorich and other people. But it's what you and I talked about, I think, on our last episode, was why are we continuing to dedicate time to players who are maybe over the peak, or some of
temporary,
them
or temporary?
Yeah, or temporary, and that we're not committed to, and why don't we just give some of these kids a chance to come in and see what they're going to do? Wagner, had made that massive overhaul and subbed on a lot of people in the game previous to the Union Berlin game, and it changed the second half. It was a much better second half after you kind of overhauled the entire lineup using like all 5 subs, and a lot of those were young guys. And so I think that was the point we were trying to make, was we're not going to qualify for Europe at this point, and we're not in danger of getting relegated. Like, yeah, you could say that it might be better for us to finish in like the top 10 for various reasons, but I mean, ultimately, we don't really have much to lose. So why are we still kind of banging our heads against the wall with similar team selection and similar systems and that kind of thing? Why don't we just try to change it up? And we finally saw that. It was a really, really interesting lineup. Obviously, Bastian Oshipka back into his center back role because we lost Salif Sane again, unfortunately. The guy just cannot stay healthy right now, and he's not the only one on the team. And it's that's been frustrating, but we wish him the best because, I think we all still think that if he's healthy, he can be a really strong option for us back there. So, but yeah, I think the most notable thing was, besides Katuchu, was Chen Bozdogan making his league debut, and interestingly enough, doing so on the left rather than in more of like a holding midfield role. So we lined up in vaguely a 4-4-2. You could say that it kind of got diamondy at times going forward, but defensively a pretty standard 4-4-2. And Schupp was more of kind of like the number 6 type role in
Yeah.
that system. Bogdan was going down the left, which I that's not what I would have expected when I saw the team sheet initially. And then also Bujaleb up top with Katucci was also another interesting pairing. Not where he would typically play either, but ultimately I don't think it was bad. I think it worked out fairly well, and you saw a very energetic team. And I think in terms of ball pressure, that was maybe our best performance in that regard. I mean, definitely since the restart, but one of the better ones all season. I think in a lot of ways, I thought that performance was much more similar to some of our better performances earlier in the season, where the pressing was really in full effect, and you could, and some of the hallmarks of what we would expect from David Wagner were being demonstrated on the pitch. So from that perspective, I think it was very positive, and I think you saw kind of a return to what we expected to see more of this season from us. Now, obviously, it still wasn't the most fluid performance offensively. I think we still have issues with getting the balls into our strikers and providing service to Katuchu and others, and that's something we need to work on. But there were less long balls, I felt like, and there was less sort of aimless play. It was a lot better overall, and against a pretty good Leverkusen team too.
It certainly was, and I want to bring up the point real quick before we get to the game is that your name says Jack Mangan, noted founder of the Free Katucci movement. And the reason I want to bring this up is because we had a nice laugh with Mr. Honingstein, the obviously famed journalist. He tweeted out that he was talking to Kevin Hatchard, another famed announcer for the Bundesliga games, and he called him the founder of the UK Free Katucci movement. So we jumped in and we're like, well, yes, but we feel kind of slighted. Abel Mazaros, shout out to you for notifying about that. So we had that little nice, fun words back and forth. But so the movement's going strong, obviously. Then so to have him start in the lineup, I mean, it was buzzing before the matchup. I mean, people are tweeting us saying, "Oh my God, it's Free Katucci finally!" And then we see the lineup and there's a bunch of youngsters in it, and the game was it was one of the funnest games I've watched of recent memory. And I'm going to go on a limb and say, for me, it was the best performance outside of that Gladbach game in the Rückrunde. The man you just talked about, Chan Bazduan, he impressed me in this matchup. He was on the left-hand side. He got into it really quick, too. He slid it off to Weston McKennie in the second minute. He releases a howitzer a la John Joe Kenny right at Radetzky. Not the best placed ball, but Radetzky could not handle that. And our boy had a glorious opportunity to get a goal right off the bat, and he missed the rebound just wide, Jack. I thought I was getting ready to start celebrating there with Katuchu.
Oh, what a glorious moment that would have been for the movement. But to cut Katuchu some slack, that rebound comes up pretty high, and he tries to volley it. Maybe you can make the argument he should have gone with his head or tried to take play it off of his chest and then bring it down and take another shot. But I think he thought he only had kind of a split second to get that off, and ultimately wasn't just quite able to reach it and keep it under control. But if you watch that replay, it's excellent anticipation from Katuchu to keep himself on side and break in there. And he was by far the first person to pounce on that, and he was waiting for that rebound. So that's some good IQ from him there to get himself in that position. Unfortunately, not able to finish, but good start. And McKennie just an absolute. I mean, not particularly placed very well because it went directly at Radetzky, but you could tell how difficult it was for him to even control it because it just hit him straight in the chest basically and bounced off. So love to see that from McKennie taking some shots from outside the box, and what a start that would have been.
Yeah, exactly. And I think actually Katuchu slipped a little bit on just before he got the shot off. So I think if he had a little bit better footing, maybe he would have got better contact. Who knows? But he had a great opportunity there. We got a comment from Reed Stubbe saying cease and desist.
All right then.
Yeah. No, it was a great opportunity, and got a question right here real quick, or a comment right here from Jake Parnell. He says, this is the type of lineup I hope we see next year on a consistent basis. And I'm going to say not only next year, but the remainder of this season. Let the young kids play. They're the ones, they showed so much more passion and heart than anybody else we've seen in the Rückrunde thus far. It obviously looked like Leverkusen on their back heels for a good portion of the game because the youngsters were coming at them. A good performance, not a great performance, a good performance, had the lead for majority of the game. And he says the clubs do not have the funds to support any signings of established quality players. Yeah, so we're gonna have to rely heavily on the youth system next season.
Yeah, they could be, and we'll see how things go. But it certainly looks like it's shaping up to be one of the heaviest Knappschmiede seasons in a while. You would think, where we could have, as many as 5 or 6 guys that either were on that squad last year or the year before being fixtures in the starting 11 for us next season. I wouldn't be surprised with that at all, because we're just, as you said, not going to have the funds to bring some people in. But yeah, it's what we said. There's really just no reason to not do that at this point. There's nothing to lose. We're not fighting realistically for much of importance at this point, and we're not in a position where, if we're not getting results, we're in trouble. And so then you can make the argument that maybe you need experience in those situations. I mean, yeah, I was really happy to see it. And as you said, it seemed like they were kind of executing what we would expect the game plan to be under Wagner better than the previous squad selections. Was that because Wagner, was telling them to do something different in previous games and now went back to it? I mean, maybe, but that doesn't really seem to make a whole lot of sense. It just seemed like maybe there was more motivation and more hunger from some of those younger guys and more energy. And they really went after it, and I think they gave a pretty good account of themselves.
In particular, Chan Bazduan, I thought had a really good, really impressive game.
That touch he took early in the match.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Spun on him. That's one for the trophy.
Was that Amiri or who was that? I forget who that was.
I forget who tweeted that, but somebody said another one for the trophy cabinet, and that's really what it is, right? It's the 4-4 against Dortmund, and it's like that's all we have to hold on to as Schalke fans right now. But I love that.
Jake made another comment, said, "I sincerely hope we do not go back to our old MO of poaching second league or free transfers," and I agree about that. But with the way the budget is going for next year, I don't know. I mean, he says, use the youth academy, the fantastic academy that we have. And I agree about that. Obviously, we had a lot of guys on the bench who are academy players. Part of that was because of injuries. But, I was happy to see them. Believe me, I was happy to see that. Eric Houston saying, no Veltons? What? Now, I'm not sure if he's talking about the sponsor or the beers that we don't have in our hands.
I was in Florida working remotely for the entire last week. So I have not had a chance to do shopping since I returned. So at the moment, we're only dealing with Tecate Light. But
that's what I'm talking about.
Sometimes you got to work on character, so you do what you got to do.
I got myself a little black coffee tonight, so I'm just in the same shape as that. So, yeah. No, it was an interesting start to the game. The game was pretty even, I thought. I mean, obviously, Bayern's always going to have the majority of the possession in the game, but I thought Schalke did very well to stand up to them and get a lot. Actually, they had probably the better of the opportunities in terms of scoring chances in the first half between the two teams. Even though Schalke had less of the ball, they were getting some shots off, and we actually had quality opportunities in this game with the youngsters, as opposed to we have the regular starters. We probably had more shots in this game than we had in the last 3 games combined. So pretty pathetic from that standpoint there. And jumping over to the second half, 48th minute, John Joe Kenny, he crosses it in the box looking for Miranda of all people in the front of the box, right, going for a goal. And handball is called. Daniel Caligiuri slots home the penalty, gets the goal there to give us the lead. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that call? Initially, when I first saw it, I said, what are they talking about here? But then I saw the replay. What are your thoughts? Harsh? Fair?
Yeah, I thought it was very harsh. Definitely the kind of penalty where if that had been called against us, I think you and I would be pretty angry about it on a podcast. Any Leverkusen fans who feel aggrieved by that decision, I have no argument with you. Yeah. I mean, it did make contact with his hand. You could argue that his hand was in an unnatural position. But I think it's pretty evident to everyone, apparently except for the official, unless there's some weird rule within the handball rule that I'm not understanding, which makes this a handball. But I think everyone who watched that could pretty clearly see that the only reason his hand makes contact with the ball is because Juan Miranda knocked his arm into the ball. He's going for a header, and the way his body is shaping up is he's going to make contact with his head. His hand's not really anywhere near that. It's raised a little bit, but he's very much in a position to get that off cleanly, and then Miranda flies in, hits his arm with his leg, and it goes into it. So I think that's very harsh. It's absolutely not intentional, and more than not intentional, it's not even something that he did with his own body movement, really. So yeah, pretty brutal. I mean, that's the kind of look that maybe we need right now to get a result. So I mean, I appreciate that it happened for us, but I think it was a bad call. Or at least, I mean, once again, maybe I just don't understand the handball rule, so maybe it wasn't a bad call, but I think it's a pretty harsh decision.
I would love to have someone who's a referee or a former referee, come on and talk to us about the handball rule. But my take on this is that I agree with you 100%, but I was fine with the call because it would have been called against us. Right. It's a bad call. It's a tough call. And Miranda fully, pushes his arm up, with his foot, and that's why it happens. But it was a handball. Even Phil Bonnie said on the telecast, like, what is his arm doing there? He's going for a header, yes. And yeah, Miranda's leg, kicks him up, but still if his arm was to the side, been no question about it. It was just unfortunate for the defender there. I forget which defender it was. But push comes shove, it ended up calling a penalty, and while it was harsh, I thought it was a good call ultimately. And so, Caligiuri slots from the rebound or slots from the goal on the penalty, straight up the middle. It's a tricky play there. Radetzky's one of the best goalkeepers in the league. I guess he's hoping that he's going to go to one of the sides, trying to go for a save there. So lucky Caligiuri, scored that and didn't look like a fool there, shooting it right up the middle.
To be fair to him, though, he's got a pretty good penalty record for us.
He does. So, most of our guys do, actually.
Yeah, so I felt pretty confident, actually, when he was going up. And yeah, it was more risky placement, but I think he hit it pretty hard and, it was well executed. So, yeah, the other thing I want to shout out real quick is,
if you must,
before go ahead, finish just going through the game real quick, and then we can talk about it.
Okay, yeah. No, that's fine. In the 55th minute, Alario nearly equalized off a glancing header, missed just wide. Moments later, it got a little cagey again with Ilario. It was a play where Leverkusen was trying to pass it back to Schalke in terms of good sportsmanship. Apparently, Ilario wasn't into that. He took the ball, took a shot off against Nubel, and then pushing and shoving happened all the way around. Lots of guys got yellows for that. I would be surprised if they didn't go back and look at the replay, because the guy that Caligiuri shoved, and I don't know if it was Amiri or who it was, headbutted him after the play. So maybe after the fact he'll get a suspension from that. But I got a little cagey there, Jack, in the 58th minute. And then we knew that Bayer was going to have majority of the possession going forward, trying to get that equalizer. They would find it in the 81st minute. A nice play by Wendell, really showing some pelota, some balls, going for the header when Caligiuri's foot was up high. He gets it. He crosses in the middle looking for Paulinho. And Juan Miranda, once again, on the wrong end of the ball, pounces home the rebound or the pass into the back of the net. You got to feel for the kid. Another game, another own goal basically from him. That makes it 1-1. A tough way to lose it like that. But overall, with the kids getting the nods, I was happy with the result. I mean, going into the match before I saw the lineup, I said we're going to get slaughtered. I don't know about your thoughts, but
so that goal for Leverkusen, wasn't it Wendell who played the initial ball in too from the other side of the field?
Yeah.
How do you let him play that from the right, run all the way across the field to the left, take it? Because Caligiuri was honestly showing I think a pretty severe lack of urgency on that play to actually bring that thing under control. Maybe he just didn't see Wendell coming across the field at him, but Wendell comes all the way across, grabs that, and then plays that. I mean, props to him, because I think he had a fantastic game, actually. He was very impressive for them. But, unfortunate that he was allowed to do that. And then Juan Miranda just looked like he was kind of late to react to that, and so wasn't even like sprinting initially, and kind of tried to dive in at the last minute. And, unfortunately just kind of toe pokes it in. So it's been a rough go of it for him recently. I think it's funny. I think it's making everyone appreciate Bastian Oczipka more than perhaps they did, because Oczipka's never been the flashiest player, but I
think people have been getting on him, as the run was going on, people were getting on him for not being as good, but then we saw Miranda now and we're like, let's go back.
But I mean, the thing is that we always say is just the guy stays fit for the most part, so he's always available, and he just works his ass off, and he just puts in shifts. He's not the flashiest player, and he doesn't provide you with the greatest noteworthy moments defensively or in terms of delivery from wide areas on the offensive end. But seeing Juan Miranda, I think you're realizing how solid Oczipka is and how valuable that can be sometimes. I think Oczipka comes in with all this technical prowess and everything, and I think he's getting pushed around a little bit at the moment and having a little bit of a rough go of it. Not that I don't think he has potential or anything, but like I said, it makes you kind of appreciate what you have.
And what's unfortunate for Miranda is like just before that happened, maybe like the early parts of the second half, I was thinking, hey, maybe he's kind of made amends for last week. He's playing decently. He's contributing the attack. But then, that happens and that threw it all out the window. So that's it sucks for him, but maybe like you said, it opens our eyes to Oczipka and wanting him back, and maybe put another midfielder in the middle just to try to clog it up and create more offensive opportunities.
To be fair to Leverkusen, I think it was probably a deserved draw.
Yeah,
on their part, especially because I think in the second half they put a decent amount of pressure on us. for a lot of that. So, and then here we have a question or a comment right now,
which is kind of going to your point earlier, right?
That's what I was going to talk about. Was James here says McKennie had a career game in midfield. The press on Visor in the first half, and I think that was about 7 minutes in, maybe the 8th minute.
Yep.
Mitchell Visor picks up the ball, and McKennie just I actually want to go back and see how long that sustained period of pressure lasted. But
it was at least, I felt like 20 seconds. I felt like
it had to have been at least 10 seconds of McKennie just chasing him around the field until he ultimately gets him, kind of by the sideline as an extra defender and takes the ball off of him. And I think that was probably the first moment early in the match where you're like, okay, like we're showing up today. Like this is kind of what we expect to see from David Wagner's teams, and what we have seen in some of our better performances. The Gladbach one to start off the Rook run to Leipzig earlier in the first half is that kind of ball pressure. And that makes up for a lot of the deficiencies that we have when we do that to teams.
And in particular with McKennie too, when he does that, our team feeds off of that, I think, and it's shown in the past. For
sure, and that's something that he can do. I think when we talk about the deficiencies that Weston McKennie has, I think what most people would agree with is on the defensive side of the ball, he sometimes reacts a little bit late to danger in his own half.
Yeah.
And then on the offensive side of the ball, his deficiencies are primarily technical in terms of like first touch and errant passing, and he also sometimes plays a little bit out of control. But what he always can do pretty consistently if he commits to it is just being a pest in that regard. Because he runs and he chases people down, doesn't give people a lot of peace, and did a great job of that in this one. But I think what we saw were some of those offensive deficiencies were not really present in this game for McKennie. He was very much under control. There's a lot of situations where I feel like if you play a ball into McKennie and you kind of put him in a bad spot, and there's a couple people closing him down, he's phenomenal at his first touch, getting him out of trouble and getting past that. But then it's usually the second or third touch is wild, a little bit out of control, and he loses possession, or it kind of like the ball runs away from him, that sort of thing. There were so many moments where he gets that first touch to avoid danger, and I'm expecting it to break down, and it doesn't. And he keeps it under control. Like really the best players, it feels like the ball is on a string connected to their foot, and it's always kind of in their sphere of influence. And McKennie always feels like at times that he's kind of at the mercy of whatever the ball wants to do. And this game, it really wasn't that way. I thought McKennie was very much in control, and he showed you what that can look like. I thought his passing was pretty good. I think he had like almost 100% of his take-ons were successful. Had a lot of ball recoveries, a lot of interceptions. It was a very good game for McKennie, and I think some of the most outspoken critics of Weston McKennie on Schalke Twitter were giving him props, which is a good thing. So if that's happening, that he really did have a good game, and this is what we're talking about. Like that kind of game shows you the potential that we think Weston McKennie might have, which is above average potential. Could be an excellent player. He hasn't done it consistently enough, and there's definitely things in his game that are not there, and that he's rightfully criticized for at times. But this was one of his better performances of the season, if not the best one.
Yeah, and another shout out saying, he did turn two defenders earlier in the game, and I thought, he did brilliant for me, man of the match. I thought this is one of the better games I've seen in a long time from Weston McKennie, from beginning to the end. He was certainly impressive for me, and I think like we were saying earlier, when he's on the game like that, the whole team feeds off of him. It's a very similar way that the team feeds off Katuchu, and it's funny that people are praising McKennie in this game, but a lot of people, those same people who are praising McKennie, we're also starting to hate on Katuchu, saying, "Oh, see, he's not right yet." And I was like, "Calm down, all right, just calm down. Let the kids play a little bit, all right." We got a comment here from Eric Houston. He says, "By the way, shout out to James. We chat all the time about Schalke pre and post game. So, thank you for the comment there." Eric, he says, "As long as we keep the spine of the team, Kabak, Serdar, McKennie in the middle, and Katuchu up top, we can build a pretty good team around them." And I agree about that, 100% there. Jake Parnot says, "Don't worry, you aren't alone. No one understands the handball rule." That's true. That's true. I don't even referees, I don't think know what the heck the call is.
That is definitely true.
Eric says, "Ochipka is Westerman 12 years later." Good shout out there. That's an old reliable there. Like a Volvo, super reliable, nothing flashy. Yep. So no, it certainly is true. We got a win or a draw was felt like a win almost, just the way our team played. I think the young boys responded really, really well. I'm curious what the lineup's going to be for the next game. Hopefully to see more of that. Hopefully, the higher ups were saying, "Hey, just play the young kids already. We're not going to get relegated at this point. Just let them play." Obviously Bergstaller was in the crowd. He was injured. A lot of the guys are injured now the rest of the season. Sane, we saw pictures of him. He tweeted from the hospital room.
Yeah.
So let the kids play, man. See what they got. At least give them confidence going into next season.
the other thing is, I think this game actually could have been better offensively than it ultimately was, because something I noticed a lot was there were some good runs being made off the shoulder, especially, and for whatever reason, the number of through balls we had get cut out by the defense was like so high. It felt like there were so many times there's a player cutting in behind, and you just need that one through ball to open up a chance, and it just couldn't get through for some reason. So maybe we just need to work on our passing there for some extent. But that kind of movement offensively is something we've criticized recently too. There's too many players standing around watching the ball. And once I don't know if it was the youth or what it was, but more people seem to be active in providing, different looks and keeping the defense honest in that regard. And it was really promising. So I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of some of the players playing out of position, like long term, if that's going to be something that can really work. Because obviously, where Bujlev was and Boswan was and stuff, is kind of strange positions, and Shups and everything. But yeah, a positive change, and at least that's what it was. It was a change. We've criticized Wagner at times for his lack of flexibility, and I think he showed in this, not so much like in system. And I mean, like I said, there were still issues with what we were doing, but to kind of put that many young players in it and change things up to that much of an extent, I think you have to give him credit for, because it's what we've been calling for, and it worked pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the initial lineup that they showed on the screen with Bujlev kind of playing like either a 10 or in the midfield role, we're like, okay, that's the lineup we kind of want to see, because let them flood the midfield and then feed Katuchu. But then Wagner did go to his patented old two striker up top, which is fine. It's both players are really out of position. I think Katuchu is more of like a shadow striker or a false nine type player to play behind the striker. But if when your options are very limited, hell, let's play him. Let's play him on the pitch. I don't care at this point. But Bujlev,
you wonder how we would have looked if like Bosdowan was playing where Shup was playing, and then maybe like Robbie Matanda was playing down the left hand side.
Yeah,
and getting in behind there. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I think that combination of players is interesting and does a lot more for us than some of the more static guys we've been putting out there, for sure.
One of the players who I thought played very well defensively, but didn't contribute offensively, was Ozan Kabak. Obviously solid defensively, had an early yellow, which kind of worried me, but he was smart enough not to get another yellow. But his passes, every time he looked for a pass over the top or a through pass, it was just too strong on the ball. Unfortunately, so that broke up a lot of opportunities that we had with the counterattacks there. And,
I think he's rapidly becoming an emotional leader for us as well.
Yes,
which I love. He reminds me. He's not quite this crazy, but he reminds me of Zed Kolasinac a little bit in terms of that defensive player who sometimes gets cards that he shouldn't get out of frustration, or maybe being a little bit overzealous in some challenges, but is ultimately really solid and works his ass off and is able to rally people and kind of lead from the back in that way. So I mean, yeah, I love Kabak, and I really hope we can hold on to him. And he's kind of walked into a situation here at Schalke that is suboptimal, to say the least.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't begrudge him at this point in his career when he has momentum to try to maybe take that somewhere else. But if we can keep him for a bit and kind of build our back around him, I think we're going to be very well served going forward.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to everyone on YouTube, listen to us live, commenting with us. I appreciate it. Feel free to send us questions. We're going to answer some questions here now. First one was, and a funny one was, Miranda, what the fuck? Fair question, right?
Yeah, it's a fair question. Yeah, did not cover himself in glory in that moment or in a number of games recently. I think of our two Barcelona loanees, Todibo has been the more impressive one, I think, by far. And the guy that shows that maybe he's a little bit more match ready at that level at this moment in time. Once again, doesn't mean that Juan Miranda can't get there. And when you look at the buyout clause that he supposedly has, I mean, clearly they expect good things from him. And Barcelona has a track record of doing good things with young players. But not a good moment from him. And hopefully he can. That doesn't affect him too much, because you hate to see a young player who gets an opportunity in a game like that. And it's a pretty big game against a big opponent. Yeah. And it looks like as a team, we're putting in a performance that's finally turning things around. And we got a 1-0 lead, and we might get our first win in like 12 games or whatever been. And then he does that. I mean, that can really affect somebody, particularly a young player. So hopefully he's able to brush that off and not be too hard on himself and kind of keep his head down and keep working.
you were speaking about leadership, and the one thing I didn't see when that goal happened is usually when that play happens, a veteran will go up to the kid and go be like, "Hey, don't worry about it, shake it off." Salif Sane would do that, right? You didn't see anyone do that after that, and that's the kind of thing I was like, "Come on, at least give him a pat on the back, say don't worry about it."
Yeah, you're missing an Aldo there or somebody like that to kind of come in and do that for sure.
Yeah. Next question comes from Brad Denny of Speak of the Devils podcast. That's not any kind of Devils in terms of soccer. It's Arizona State football. So he says, given the current resources, what moves could be made to elevate the squad to a contender from a spot in Europe next season? And the second part was, who would be the manager next season? That's a tough one. So let's do the first part first. Given the current resources, what could we do to elevate the squad to make Europe? It's tough.
Not a lot. I mean, if what Schalke is saying about the financial picture is to believe, we really don't have the budget to sign almost anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't imagine our spend is going to be that far north of like $10 million.
Unless we sell people, which
exactly. And I think anybody you sell probably isn't going to bring you in the kind of money that's going to allow you to go out and actually buy like some really good people. I mean, we're not selling, a Manuel Neuer or a Draxler or a Sane this offseason. I mean, maybe the most money we could get would be from somebody like an Amin Arit. But I mean, the other problem is everyone knows that we're in such financial difficulty that it's not exactly a seller's market for us.
Yeah, they're going to lowball us.
And we tend to get fleeced anyway, because for whatever reason we just have abhorrent transfer policy and contract management. But I mean, you look at Brelin Bolo, who's still young and still full of potential, and what we got like back 50% of what we paid for him.
Yeah.
Like, and that's before we were kind of in the financial situation we're in. I mean, it's going to be a fire sale if we try to go in that direction. I mean, honestly, I almost feel like Schalke is better off like trying everything possible to not sell a bunch of people to get the money and just try to survive for a season and plug the gaps with Knapperschmiede talent in the hopes that, maybe going into 2 years from now, we're in a better financial picture and we've been able to hold on to a Suat Serdar and a Weston McKennie and an Amin Harit. And then we can add to that and just kind of maybe tread water next season. So it's tough. It's tough for me to go out and be like, hey, here's 5 players that can make an impact for us, just because they're going to have to be pretty damn obscure for us to bring them in if we're going to be able to afford them. And I don't really think that's the case.
What I think they really should do is, whatever money they have, spend it on a veteran that can help, lead this team mentally to get to the right place. Because I think, like you said, if you don't sell players, keep what we have, keep a core, build a core together, use the youth academy, play these young kids, see what they got. It's a great time now to give them a trial run to see what they can do with the ball at pitch time. And then bring a veteran in that can help, lead these boys, especially when they're going down, keep their heads up and stuff like that. Someone who's probably a potential coach, get someone on the cheap towards the end of his career. That's an idea there. But use the youth academy, use the Knapperschmiede.
Benedict Hivides, perhaps, by any chance?
Or Ralph Fairman?
There you go. The ferryman. I love when I'm on Twitter and I translate a German tweet and it translates Fairman to the ferryman.
The ferryman.
I really enjoy that. Anyway,
new nickname.
Yeah, Benedict Hivides. I mean, very much over the hill. I think everyone would agree. But honestly, if he's not ready to hang him up yet, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't potentially want him as a locker room presence.
Yep, exactly.
A former captain guy, who's won our most recent silverware for us, pretty much. That's something to consider. And I mean, if you're looking for something on the cheap, you could probably find a way to sign him, and he might be more flexible to work with you than somebody else. I don't know. It's definitely tough.
It is tough. And then an equally tough question is, what do you do with the manager situation for next year? We're in this revolving door where we're constantly changing players up, we're changing managers up, and at some point you just want to stop and try to break that cycle, but we're still in a poor form. I mean, look at this season. I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm not convinced that Schalke are going to let go of David Wagner, that they're going to choose to part ways with him. And I'm not convinced that it would be the right move anyway. I mean, he's been getting a lot of criticism recently, some of it on this podcast.
Us? No.
And we've been frustrated with him at various times this season, even when things were going well. But the problem is, and the question I always come back to is, who can you get?
Who's available?
I mean, what manager that you're going to be able to attract who's available, and would want to come into this situation at Schalke with, let's face it, one of our weakest squads in recent memory, the worst financial situation we've been in recent memory. That's not exactly an attractive situation to get yourself into, especially on top of that when you have a club like Schalke that's noted for going through managers even when things are better than they are right now.
Yeah.
So the question is, who can you bring in? I mean, it's not going to be a name. It's not going to be a big name for sure, unless you're going to try to go in and find another, Tedesco in terms of some sort of like unearthed talent. But even that had mixed results over the course of a couple of seasons. So, David Wagner hasn't been as impressive as I think we were hoping, because once again, he came in with this reputation of doing a lot with a little. He took Huddersfield, a team with no resources comparatively to a lot of others, got him promoted, kept him up for a season. That was his whole thing. And then also this style of play sort of, you would think kind of fits the ethos of the club and everything. There's a lot of reasons to kind of like bringing him in and thinking that he was going to be a good fit. And he's done good things at good times. I mean, but it's just, for me, it's like, what better option is out there? As long as we build off this Leverkusen performance and finish out the remaining 3 games of the season fairly strong, or however many games are left, I wouldn't be against giving him another chance to start next season.
Neither would I. I think you're better off keeping him, saving the money there. And really, what I would do really is focus on the fitness side of things. And I'll give you an example. Like when Leon Goretzka, our favorite trader, when he was with us, I mean, he was a skinny little guy, right? He look at him at Bayern, and he's almost got as big arms as Lewandowski. They train their players there. They strength train their players, so they're strong on the ball. We need our players to do that. We need our coaches to do that, train our guys up, because we got little guys. We do have a lot of little guys. Bujilev, Katuchu, all these. Katuchu's probably a little bit bigger, but a lot of small guys. We build them up with strength. At least they'll be strong on the ball and won't get manhandled like Miranda on the Uja goal in Union Berlin.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, you saw Leroy Sané and Goretzka come out of quarantine like jacked as hell.
Yeah,
it'd be nice to see.
And you got Harit, who's like,
yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that Harit needs to go Adama Traore on everybody, but it'd be nice to see, bulked up a little bit. And the fitness would certainly be helpful as well if we didn't have half our team injured at any one moment. So, speaking of the injury thing, what I would say though is that I think Wagner has relied on that too heavily in terms of his excuses after matches, and that has not helped the people's view of him. He's absolutely right that it is an issue. I mean, if you're going to take, regular starters like Sané and Mascarell and Harit and Serdar and suddenly drop them from the team, it's going to affect your team. Your team is going to be worse, and that's true. But we don't think that Wagner had necessarily done enough up to this point to demonstrate some flexibility and try some new things and bring in some new solutions, and he looked like he's taking a step in that direction for Leverkusen. So hopefully he can keep that going, and we finish up the season stronger than we had since the beginning of the restart.
Good friend of the show, Abel Mezaros, he wrote this fantastic article about reasons why Schalke suck, basically, to quote him. But it was
for him to do.
Yeah, but it was a fantastic article. He's really talking about what the reasons are, and it's all these different things. And included some of that stuff you're talking about, injuries and tactics, and it's a really great article. You should definitely go read it. We're going to try to get him on the podcast here soon so we can talk about that, because it was really good to see from a neutral point of view, right? We see Schalke day in and out, basically with the Twitter and everything as fans. He's looking at it from the outside perspective, and it was true. A lot of it was good. It was a really good article. So we'll tweet that out again for you guys to see, and we'll try to get him on so we can really hear from the horse's mouth, so to speak. We haven't had him in a while, so he's due for one, right?
Yeah, we gotta hold his feet to the fire on that one a little bit. No, but what I was trying to say was I'm sure Abel took at least a little bit of pleasure in writing an article about Schalke. I don't think that was too much of a chore for him to produce that. Yeah, but I think I retweeted that as well. So definitely go check that out. Abel is really, in my opinion, and the opinion of many others, one of the foremost minds in Bundesliga at the moment. And the analysis that he can provide is far above and beyond anything that we can provide for you here on this podcast, particularly for me. So, if you're looking for that, just look for the things we retweet more than the things we actually say. That'll probably steer you in the right direction.
We're like Wagner. No, I'm just kidding. Eric Houston commented saying, we've tried doing the obscure, like with Hamza Mendel. He was a huge flop. I agree. He says, I mean, Yunus may be a good fit. He may be, but I think he'll be expensive coming from Napoli or wherever he is right now. So He's a little bit of a head case as well. Has a little bit of a temper there. So yeah, it's all good shouts out. Good shout out there. So yeah, Jack, you got anything else for us before we wrap this one up?
No. Just hope we see Katuchu up top again. I mean, even if
the one, absolutely,
yeah, for sure. I mean, he was great. I mean, but I think even the people that were like, "Well, see, Katuchu didn't do a whole lot." Okay, but if you're gonna have two players that are both doing nothing, who would you rather have on the field in terms of potential to do something? The guy in Bergstaller who hasn't scored all season
and offsides all the time.
Yeah, or Katuchu, who has demonstrated the ability to do that to some extent. So yeah, I'm not worried about it. It would have been nice if he had finished that chance, but he needs to be starting, and hopefully Wagner doesn't stray away from that, because that would be pretty infuriating.
And I like your shout about bringing in Robbie Matanda with the young kids to see what he can do with some speed there on the left-hand side instead of Miranda or something. So
he works pretty hard in terms of his ball pressure.
He does.
So I mean, he's not. His
decision making is a little bit down, but everything else is. I mean, you got good heart.
I mean,
for sure.
He'll run and he'll do that job that Wagner wants him to do, for sure. So that's not like a downgrade in terms of Wagner's system there either. So.
Absolutely. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you sign up for the Schalke US newsletter. Simply just give me your email, and you'll get those newsletters out monthly. So make sure you do that. That's going to wrap it up here. Keep tuning in each week as we bring you the latest from the Royal Blues. We want to thank Schalke for providing us tidbits for our podcast today. We also want to thank all those who participated in our big giveaway, and congrats once again to Gary Halpin for being the victor of the team signed kit provided by Schalke. So thank you all again for those who enter the contest, for those who are watching here on YouTube. We also want to give out, of course, a special shout out to our good friends at NBC4 Nashville. As always, if there are any topics or questions or anything you want us to talk about on the podcast, send us a tweet at SchalkeMerica. Jack, where can our followers find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at JMMangan, JMMANGAN. Got it twice in a row now, or 3 times in a row. I butchered it.
Yeah.
But I think I'm on a roll now. So, you can look for my my retweets of better tactical analysis on there.
Right on. I'll drink that. And as always, I'm your host, Richard Carmen. You can find me at R_KHARMAN anywhere on social media. So thank you. We'll see you soon. Episode 95 coming around the corner, and we'll talk then. Tschüss.
Later's on the man, Jay.